Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new office hours this happy Friday. We're having special guests, one coming back for after a while, amigo Paul.
I was here last week. No, but yeah, I was away for 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a ramp up again into the process, pun intended. We're going to talk a lot about that in a moment. And we have a special guest. First time or in a long time, we were trying to defer that or to make sure that we know what we're talking about. Pepe Cano. Hello, Pepe.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to have you here and share your perspectives because you are responsible for a good part of what is documented out there, right? Well,
Yes,
not
yes,
creating it, but keeping it in shape, right?
yes. My primary focus on the KSIC team is about technical content. So sometimes creating, overseeing the content on the marketing side, documentation blog, doing a random of things with the developer advocate team as well.
If anyone out there likes our documentation or our blog posts, down here is the one to blame.
Yep.
There is too many people involved.
Yeah. I mean, I won't take credit out of all the hands working behind it, but Pepe is who gives the last touches and helps everyone. I believe we have a wrong link somewhere there. I'm being notified. Let's see if we can fix it in a moment.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, for the YouTube video, anyone? I see a good attendance. Okay, we have support back there and back end. Everything is working fine. Okay, so we're going to talk today about a topic that it's a little bit, let's say, controversial, that people has some perspectives that we want to discuss today. This is the topic today is the load test types. This discussion is based on some updates that we did to our documentation on what type of load tests we can do and how to do them in K6. But before we get into the talk, we have some announcements. We have to cover this at the beginning. We have first a promotion of Nicole's talk. She has a recording on emergent load testing. It is now available on YouTube. Please, everyone, if you're watching this on YouTube, go to the comments at the bottom. You will see a link for it. After this, after we are done, go and take a look at Nicole's presentation.
That's right. You got to wait.
Yeah,
now.
not yet. I know it's super exciting. And no, it is. I mean, I wasn't being sarcastic or anything. And as well, please, we were mentioning earlier that we updated our documentation on load test types. Let me quickly show here. We created this new documentation. You can take a look. We tried to come up with the best we could do in examples and explanations on what type of load tests do we have, how they are different, and pretty much what we are going to be talking about today. But if you need and want, go and take a look. It's I have heard very good things about it. I hope that we do a good job trying to put this together and the discussion that we're going to be doing. Again, take a look at the link or just Google K6 test types and you go straight into it. Now, let me remove this. Another interesting set of announcements. We just released the new K6 News, our video report for the updates that we have in K6. We have some new elements, new segments. As an example, the extensions traffic report from our amigo Paul, who is not going to be on the weather anymore. He's now going to be still in the sky, sharing with us some of the status with the extensions. And we have some surprise special guests on this episode and many more things. I highly recommend it. Go and check it on K6's YouTube channel. It was released yesterday. So take a look. Probably is the latest video.
I'm just glad they trusted me with the keys to the KSIX helicopter.
We gotta get an image of that helicopter, mountain shaped and everything. Oh boy, I got some ideas. Okay, moving on. Another one, last week, I was on Star East. I was doing a set of interviews, walkthroughs, having lots of fun, streaming the panels. There was an awesome performance testing panel that as well was streamed. Please go and take a look at the descriptions here in the YouTube video. Also, after this, go into the last several things that happened during Star East. But now, not to wait any longer, let's get into the main topic for today, which is load testing types, load test types. And well, as I mentioned earlier, this is a heavy, somewhat controversial topic because load testing types, we have many flavors, many different. This is going to be very redundant when I keep talking about it, but many types. But what are them? What are these test types, things? Pepe, yeah, I see you guys.
I think it's safe to say that people have opinions, so there is nothing new here. So we came up with the more essential one, and I think the image that you created was a pretty good one. That it showed the 6 more common case, and everyone that we have shown the image say that that's nails, and it showed clearly what are the difference. So what we can tell is we have been looking also at some data, how people are using, see how the community using, and we wanted to share today some insight. We have put some content on the documentation, but there is also much more on our research that we wanted to share because it's not easy sometimes to come just with something that is fit to everyone. This is what we wanted to share also today.
Yeah, these testing types as our effort here to show you on a glance, on a glimpse, just like here, these are all, not all of them, because we're going to get into some of those controversies, but a load test type is a definition or a category that you can do depending on the mix of the duration of your test, that's very standard, amount of time, and how hard or by how many do you want the tests to hit your system. That second element is variable. We can focus on how many virtual users or the throughput, how many actions do we want to put in the system. And mixing those two things, we can do all these different, where's my here, that you see here in the graph. So, and let's take it away a little bit. So what is the, with these testing types, we found some situations, some roadblocks with defining them, naming them. There were some that earlier we had inside of the others or part of the others. We tried to make a division, but still was not an easy task. So let's go and see which one are the ones that we have as the main load test types that we have. And let's start with one controversial because to call it a load test type, it's a bit interesting. What do you think, Paul?
Oh, which one are we talking about? Oh, yeah, the smoke test. Yeah, no, that's just a quick one. That's gonna, from anybody that was joining us last week, we kind of talked about the schema validation and that. It's or a contract test. That's the smoke test. Just making sure it's just a quick hit to make sure that things are up and running. Right. It's hardly a load test. How dare you call it a load test?
Exactly.
Enter controversy.
Because as well, this one serves many purposes. First, as Paul mentioned, first we can check that our scripts work well. Why I don't want to try 1 billion users or throughput if it's not working well, right? So, so it's. How dare you call yourself load tests? It's I wouldn't have said it better, Paul. But it's very useful as well, as you say, to validate that our software is working well, not only on our scripts, but on your system. I think I have shared before this story that when I was asked to come into a load testing project, and to start automations from test cases, I would find processes or steps that were very slow, unperformant, and malo performance. No bueno, no. And I was always wondering, like, hasn't anyone tested these like manually or reported? So in one hand, it's kind of trying to filter this type of bad actors in your system. Why go further into load testing more if you already can identify that, right?
Exactly.
And the other one is to figure out what is the baseline. And baseline, this is another term that is going to be interesting to discuss, because is baseline for one user, which is not load, or baseline defined as another type of test that we're going to talk in a moment. But there are some key elements. Pepe, we had some back and forth with these key elements.
Yes, I think what we found was, okay, we were expecting a smoke test, mostly 2-3 view, and what we have seen over and over in the last year is that a lot of people are running mostly this small mini load test the most of the time. So there is not like a clear smoke test number, and it varies from 2 view to 10 view to 20 view, probably because they are automating the test, and also on the duration. So it's not only about 30 seconds. We are seeing like a range between 30 seconds and 10 minutes with this mini load test and smoke test. So maybe the point is that there is no clear difference, and they are both the same, what is a smoke test and mini load test, as of how people are using those today.
I'm gonna give you a curveball right now to start some polemics. And what would be the difference between a synthetic automation to a mini load test? Anyone? I blue screened everybody, right?
404.
Yeah, because that's an interesting advantage that we can do. We can some of these smoke tests count as synthetics that we can just like 2 users every certain periods of time to be running and checking synthetic monitoring in production. To tell us your response time is good to your baseline, nothing is going out of whack. So it has multiple uses, and this thing that there's to try to be called a load test. And
Yeah.
that goes in line with this question from Bruno Vieira. Very good one. Is it a good practice to set a smoke test into a continuous pipeline? I think this will start some good debate, right?
Yeah, that's one where I say absolutely. It's that's where you're going to put your hooks in there, and then that's where you can do your schema validation and contract verification, just to make sure that everything's that you're not breaking someone, and that's a perfect opportunity to do it in your CI/CD pipeline early.
What do you think, Pepe?
Same. That is the most common use case that we see as well. Meaning small load test very frequently, either every commit or either every branch commit.
Yeah. As we will see in a moment, these type of load tests are not exclusive. That you already ran that one, I'm good to go. I would say is the first step in your pipeline. So check that your process, whatever are you automating, is not going out of whack or anything through the release cycle. And I think a great advantage of having this in your pipeline is that you can run multiple mini load tests without turning it into an official load test, and check many elements as a quick regression of the important parts that you have. There are many techniques that you can try to do, but Bruno, definitely it's a very good practice. I highly recommend it. First step, and as well to leave them continuously running, even as some part of a safe check of your productive and all the environments. Another advantage that you get from these mini load tests being run continuously, they give you some historic metrics, if you store them, of course, to know what has been the health of your system release after release, and you will have comparison points at low volumes. That's the first step, to know, hey, this took, I don't know, 0.5 seconds 3 releases ago, and now it's 4. Something's wrong. So it's very useful to just see some deviations from the first step. very good question. I knew that we were going to have some of this action
Controversy
today. And just to quickly, before we end this one, we have a big mess with naming conventions. There's no W3 organism or anyone that defines these are the names for the type of load tests. Because as we are going to see, is this a smoke? Is this a shakeout, a debug, a synthetic, a mini load? I like to call them Chihuahua-sized load tests. So it is hard to come by with specific names. Some places call it one way, some places call it other. We are sticking to these ones that make the most sense to us. And if you like them, use them as they are. Let's try to come to a consensus. I would invite, hey, Internet, everyone that is watching. It's a difficulty. We have a comment. I like it. Naming is the hardest part of software. Yep. So, yeah, is it a SDK? Is it a platform? Is it like, and it's difficult to come up with given names. But let's move on to the next one. We have, and how to say, can you see we have quotings at the beginning with average? Because there are so many problems out there with this type of test and the naming, specifically the naming, right, Pepe?
I think adding the average here was a good one because that is the average load test and otherwise people cannot differentiate. So I found a good name, this one. It's clear what is your average throughput, your average traffic, and this is a type of load test as well.
Yeah, it's something that I really have trouble, even with some organizations. I'm going to give a silly example, but that's why the parent company is called Alphabet and the product is Google, because if both are the same name, it's going to lead to some confusions. And sadly, all these family of load tests are called load test, but the average in other places is just called the load test as well. And it's like, interesting. But even like adding this average prefix or trying to put like something that this distinctive naming to it, we found some other difficulties, right, Pepe, with average, the word?
Okay, what we found or what we have seen over the year is there is no one average, and people create very different average either during the same day or during the different seasons. So this is what we see very often, that people have some different level of average and they have the same test with different load, but they are all like average load test as a different time of the day.
Mm-hmm. So this is going to be kind of like the realistic scenario. So like, this is what our production usage is typically on a normal Saturday or whatever. And that's what we're trying to test. And that's what you would be doing here. You're not trying to spot any kind of how does the system react under extreme duress or anything like that. You're just trying to find what's the normal level of the water.
Exactly. And as Pepe very well said, just in a week, in a day, or in a single hour, we can have different averages. And it's interesting. What's the, I don't know, what's the average utilization of GitHub from the K6 team during June, July? It's really low. It's summer. Everyone is the month of vacation that we have and some other activities. Which one is on, I don't know, a few weeks ago when we released Grafana Cloud K6, what was the average utilization? Well, I bet it was pretty high, pretty interesting. And in a single day, Pepe, as you very well said, 9 a.m., everyone logging in into their desks in an office, the average will be very interesting and different from, let's say, noon, when, I'm already off on lunch and not doing much. But this is an interesting question. If we have different averages per day or per hour, and we are focusing on load tests, which one would we care more about? 9 a.m. or noon? Any guesses?
Your mileage may vary. It's It's like in the US, a lot of times, batch processes and things like that, you would trigger them at midnight, right? That's when you figure, nobody's up and, using the system at that time. But, midnight in, say, the Eastern US time zone is what, 7 a.m., 6 a.m.? I don't know. Some other time in a time zone, different time zone. So Europe may be just getting up and active. So, yeah, everybody's average is going to be different.
What do you think, Pepe?
I think people start with picking one, the highest average, and then they realize that, okay, that's it during the morning, but I also want to have a test for my average evening time. We see over and over, like having like 2 to 3 average, and to test very frequently the same type of test. What there is not a clear or more clear opinion is on the duration. So we see over and over people with a small duration test, but also with a longer test. Don't find a very common pattern in that regard.
Now, do you think that the average is what you should apply as being like your baseline? What you should set as that?
That's where I was hinting earlier, that which one is the baseline? Do I consider it like what just one user will experience? If it scales for one user, this is my baseline, or on an average day. And again, what is the average day? Is it noon or 9 a.m. or 9 a.m. with the batch process that has not finished, and for some reason there's a lot of mess? I think I always try to say the question is why? Why are you trying to run this load test? Oh, just for performance. Yeah, but what part of performance? What concerns you? What is the problem? You're not going to be choosing this type of load tests for every occasion or exactly the same. Let's say, as Pepe said, we could be repeating the same average that we defined earlier, but what happens if in a month the organization acquires another one and we have twice more people? Our average has changed, so we cannot keep it exactly the same. That's an interesting element that I don't know personally, and that's why I was asking Paul what you were saying. We can take, if lunch or 6 a.m. it's important. What is going to be the experience with the batch process running? That may be important. I generally recommend to focus on 9 a.m. because that's what has the highest activity. At noon, 9 a.m. is the one that we are concerned about. Noon most probably will be fine, right? If we are
siesta time.
Load. And that would take to another point that we're going to talk in a moment. But let's keep moving because we have many more interesting that we should check.
And more controversy.
The stress. This is
can't take it.
Can the system take it? Yeah, but in a still realistic, because this is a key component of this. That as we were saying, 9 a.m. is high, but average. What would be too high for average? Like, I don't know, payday at 5 p.m. when everyone is checking if the payroll already and they got the deposits. I don't know, as I was saying, beyond average probably was when we released Grafana Cloud K6, right? Probably that was a situation where the activity is going to be a little bit higher than usual, higher than our high averages, and we want to know if the system survives. And I don't know, defining what is this beyond, that's also very random. What would you guys say is beyond average?
I think it's very similar than the average load test. It's just you scale up every time. And the stress test, when you see like a common, very, very, very high traffic, that's what your stress test should be. If you see the same duration, there is no probably too much difference. You just try to calculate the common traffic at your peak level and create a load test simulating that.
A little bit higher. But, and here's the question, how higher should we go? Because it's a scenario like, hey, I want to try for, if all the employees in the company decide to log in and do this, or all my users, all my customers, how high is extra high, right? That I'm like, I'm going to survive a bad day, perfect storm, some of these things. What are you concerned? What's your higher threshold, to call it in a way? It's up to you, right? I'm sorry for the ones that are looking for the commandments of load testing types and could be 50% above.
Yeah, aren't you going to say peak performance plus 10%? Isn't that the exact equation?
Yeah. E equals MC square plus performance, and that's it for everything. No. Here it depends on your situation. And if you can see here, the above average, the stress test, in this graph is just slightly or twice above the average one. But how high? And if you're not careful, and this average was a heavy average day, what is the difference? How can you tell which one is higher or which one is lower? That's why the naming conventions as well are a little bit complicated. I have heard it as rush hour, surge test, scale test, if it will scale up to this point. Some other consider it to be the test that tries to break the system, which is another one. So it's interesting, and it's a big controversy here. Everyone having some past learned naming conventions. Probably, I try to list all of them. I forgot to mention the previous ones. For just average load, as we said, just load, or a day in live, an hour in production, as you said, Paul, just volume testing. Yeah, it's complicated. It's the consensus is weird. So let's move to the next one. Soak. It's just longer, right?
Just very longer.
And here is the other question: how longer?
As long as it takes.
We have seen 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours.
Professionally, my record was 4 days. Non-stop. 4 days. Boom, 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 all the time. What do we get from this test is to check that there are no degradations. What are common problems that generate degradations programmatically?
Memory leaks.
Oh, yeah. That's the first culprit, right?
Maybe you don't pool your database resources correctly. You're not returning things to a pool, and you're going to see it over time. And if you're back in Java land or something like that, garbage collection. I guess even Go has that. So your garbage collection is going to show up. You're going to start seeing that over a longer period of time.
And it's a very interesting point because is your garbage collection triggered every 3 hours? What is the activity that you are going to be seeing during that long period? And we want to find out, right? What other ones, Pepe, do you know we can catch with a soak test?
I think the common what Paul said, memory issues, database issues. We often see either small degradation or totally outage, as it say there. So we see after 1 or 2 hours, now the system starts failing entirely. And very common, you stop sometimes the soak test too, because you have already seen what you were expecting. Some kind of, it goes on the field of the breaking test as well. Sometimes you want to see for a very long duration when things start to break.
It's the possible things that can happen as time passes, as you said, Pepe, are very interesting because have you ever seen a soak test that the performance improves mysteriously? No? As an example, I'm going to tell some stories from the field. A front end that is cached, and as our users keep working, the cache stuff on the client side, you see less requests. And this is a common situation as well, where caching could be good and show your endurance tests to progress. The other one that you mentioned, data. Well, I didn't think that my data would grow after 8 hours. But duh. I mean, and you start to see some degradation there. Silly ones that I have seen, networking being degraded. Nothing to do with the system. It was Ethernet cables exposed to sunlight at noon. The performance would degrade. And we were like, what is I won't tell you how long it took us to realize that was the source of the problem. But an endurance test helped us to catch these type of situations. And yeah, it's not a good idea to connect one building with the other with a cable just hanging in between.
just one on one extension cable. Yeah.
There it goes, there you grab it, and they plugged it, and that was the true story.
That's funny. That's funny.
We
Hey,
have very
Bruno
good-
mentioned, I was just going to say, Bruno mentioned in the chat there that his soak tests are a minimum of 10 hours.
That's rough, I would say, a little bit high, but I like it because then you can really see. We usually have 12-hour cycles in our systems. Things rebooting, batch processes, people coming, people going to sleep. Probably worldwide organizations that have different world locations. That's interesting because as well, you want to catch some of these problems. And 10 hours, I think, is a good minimum. But again, it depends. Do you only care about what will happen with your system from 9 to 5? Or is it a worldwide organization? Gabriel is mentioning here, is 2 hours considered soak testing? This is part of the polemics that we are going to be discussing, because I have run average load tests that were 2 hours, or stress tests that took 2 hours. And I have a silly example. If I gave you $100 bill every day and you put it inside of your, I don't know, piggy bank or your wallet, when exactly would you say that you are rich? When did you become a soak test? That's an interesting one, because I don't know, it depends. If in your pipeline the processes are short, 2 hours could very well be a soak test or endurance test. Let me quickly show again. We have many names here as well: endurance, constant load, stamina, several things that we want to check in the system. And I don't know, Gabriel, it's sorry, wrong button. Could be. It depends on I would say, comparatively to the other tests that you are running, or I don't know.
I am for a yes. So anything beyond 1 hour, let's consider a soak test.
Now, here might be a controversial question. Would it be during your soak test process that you would maybe inject a little chaos? Would it be during that where you're running, the 10-hour soak test, and then you're using K6 disruptor, and you start doing kind of playing little gremlin and start taking out services and injecting latency?
How do you name now?
Right, I know that's the hardest part again. So.
And again, this is why I was saying this is going to be controversial, because 2 hours could be enough, or 30 minutes. What is your sampling size before the chaos event? Are you okay with 2 hours? Are you okay with minutes? Depends up to you. Do you have already monitoring and telemetry instrumentation and observability in your system, and you already know that? You may not even need just start 10 minutes. We already know what happened hours before. Do the chaos event, and then keep going back to business, or how long it takes to go back to business. That's another interesting one that chaos could be.
Yeah. And for those, if you don't already have observability in there, you may as well put on a blindfold and throw a dart. That's, after you've spun around a few times. So,
okay, let's move on to another type. This is, I think, the least controversial. This is the spike test. I couldn't find another name for this one. Sudden rush here and there, but spike test is, I think, this one, because the shape that the graph forms here is very hard to miss, right? A sudden, incredible, stupid rush until levels that are oh my God, unrealistic. I forgot, and I left this. We don't want to make this religious talk, but it's a really very, very high amount of activity that you will receive suddenly in a moment. We can think of some events out there. And this test, when do we execute it? Do we execute it all the time? What would you say?
I think that is the comment that I say there. It's not only about seasonal events. So normally people see the spike test as a Black Friday campaign, advertisement campaign. And what we see very often is that our system has a spike of throughput maybe more often than we are expecting. Maybe because retry policies, error of other subsystems. So it's it's more common that people usually expect, because normally people expect, okay, that is going to be for our biggest campaign on the year, but it's not only like that.
I'm sure that at the release of Grafana K6 Cloud, we saw some of these activities. And it's interesting as well, what do you define a spike? As Pepe said, sometimes 9 a.m. in the office can be a spike because everyone sits there, turns on the computer more or less at the same time. You will have this event probably at a regular basis, but where you are concerned mostly is if it goes really seriously high. And this changes the landscape because most of the previous tests, we were doing the same steps. But in this one, we're going to focus on the activities that are on the spike. I'm going to give you an example, and I keep bringing Taylor Swift to the picture. I was going to have a picture here to put it on the stream, but everyone knows. And that sudden spike was way higher. When the sale started, the bots were already going crazy. Everyone was already trying to click on the purchase button from the infamous now Ticketmaster. Well, not now, has been for a while. And this purchase ticket button was the only thing that mattered. I don't want a receipt at that moment. I don't want to search for other concerts. I don't want to, I don't know, probably Dave Matthews Band was playing as well, but we know that other people, I don't know what other band, maybe won't be not that relevant, cannot think of one right now, but it's going to be the process for Taylor Swift. We don't want searches. We don't want other things. That process is what we are going to focus, different from the others, because on average, we want to focus on the processes that happen on an average day, on this release. But these, I want, even to tell you, some organizations like, because this is more or less like a Black Friday or a sale event, like, hey, we published a promotion, a sale that will last only 1 hour. Call us now, or it's those that have the countdown on TV, infomercials, right? And that's the window that you have for that process to happen. And the organizations optimize their software to give more allocation to that process, or to be bulkier or grow in that element. And they even remove some other functionalities that they don't want people clicking at that particular moment. So this is a very interesting one that when it happens, you have a lot of fun. Have you heard any other interesting stories or examples?
I just think about with the spike test. I mean, I like to mix it in with the soak test, because, you know, just like other things in life, spikes happen.
Yeah.
You know, so just throughout that long time period, because you know, in the wonderful land of Kubernetes, with we had the horizontal pod scaling and things like that, those spikes might trigger a scaling out of your pods for your service. And then, well, ultimately Kubernetes brings that back down. So then, you know, so you can continue your soak test to see how things recover after that spike. So that's where it's kind of fun to have those included in there.
That's an interesting point, because do spike tests count as chaos testing? Almost, right?
Yeah, I guess you can consider it that, yeah.
Because as you were saying, you're checking how the pods grow afterwards, how they go back and don't keep spending your cloud bill.
Yeah. Yeah, look at it like your heartbeat pattern, you know, make the graph look like that.
It's a little like I did this test not long ago. They put plugs on you and you have to do an escalator. And after that part of the test is you resting, going back to normal. And on the system, we care about that as well. How long it takes for
recover.
them to recover. And it's interesting because you brought that perspective. I generally don't recommend mixing test types or running them at the same time, because we will see that it becomes hectic. But I think this one, you got a point. this one you could put them together and probably, or put it on the same one, right? Average, and then put a big spike, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The only time where I think you could do weird stuff. This is a special one. You rarely run it when you have spike events. Not all the time, not on every sprint. Don't put this on your pipelines, please. It's even dangerous. We have a comment. Let's quickly check. Here, spike is more common than everyone thinks, I think. Here to attendee, the bet companies. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of spike moments all day. Spike test K6 is fundamental. Thank you for using K6. But this is a very good point. Ticketmaster should be having spike tests all the time. Do we all agree? Companies with sales that are constantly releasing products. I mean, at the very last once a year, those Black Friday events and things that suddenly will get crazy amounts of load in your system. What other situations do you think that may push you to do often spike tests?
Well, I'd say do like the stock market testing, right?
That's
some news came out and then boom, people are right away trading. The people that are making their life out of day trading, I guess. That's too scary for me.
That one.
Yeah,
totally. Tennis shoe companies as well, or Super Bowl moments that
there we go. Yeah,
the ad airs and everything explodes in the data center. I've seen so many organizations having that. So good point, Bruno. There are some organizations that, absolutely should keep doing that often, and probably different ones. And point is like, do your spike tests, check what broke, because something's gonna broke with a spike test, most probably. Fix it, repeat until you know that you are more or less gonna survive the spike, or that your pods react accordingly, or you need to do a revamp of your environment often when you are going to be having these events. That's very important. Now, moving to the last one that we identified, the Breakpoint Test. And this one also brought some controversies on the naming, because there were some discussions, and people get passionate about, no, I've seen it my whole life. It was named, I don't know, Pablo, and now it's you tell me it's Paul. How's he there? Internal joke here. But yeah, there are so many other names: point load, limit testing, capacity, bring it down test. I have heard even silly names, but the point of this one is to increase the load until you find a failure in the system. But we have some other controversies there, right?
Yeah, I'm going to call it envelope testing. No, it's
interesting. Don't add up to the confusion. But well, let's start the controversy. We were looking for a breaking point. Where is our system breaking? Do you see any problems around that?
Well, I'd say we wouldn't want to do this particular test in production.
Why not?
Because we are trying to get to the point to find out where the breaking point is, and with this one, I feel like you're actually trying to find that breaking point and then go beyond to see, okay, how does it behave after that breaking point, even as well, at least shortly after.
But if all the other environments are super tiny compared to production?
Yeah, I guess. You got me there. So controversial. No, it's
yeah. And as well, question, what do you consider the system breaking?
I guess that's when it's not performing as you want it to. So in other words, if you come back and you get from the server, you get an error 500, and that comes up in your user interface as being a blatant error, it's not being handled, I would say that's something that you don't want.
But what is non-performant? Because you just said a 500, but let's say for me, a process that should take a second and is taking 10.
It may take 10 seconds to check my credit report, for the purchase that I'm going to be doing.
And is the system already failing and unusable? So this is another set of controversial things. What do you care for? What are you considering? And going back to what you mentioned, Paul, in production, you may just want to test in production until you see some degradation. Okay, here is where it starts.
Then stop. Yeah.
And others, Pepe, what is the first thing when you hear breakpoint?
Okay, error rate and latency. So normally the two metric that people look at.
Personally, and I know people that think of the dog in the fire room.
It's fine.
Because some organizations consider the breaking point when is the server starting to fail. Like we are already seeing the DDoS attack alerts pinging. And there are organizations that want to push the test that far. And that's the controversy here. When do you say this is failing? Right? Is it when the performance starts to degrade, when the performance is horrible, when you're getting 500s, or when there's fire in the server room?
Normally for this one, you define your error rate. 5% of failures, 10% of failures, you realize that your system starts to fail because then it's going to be exponential.
That's a good one. But it depends because
we discussed the same with the soak test about when does it start to fail and how you stop the test. So should we stop manually? Should we define threshold to stop the test?
Because most of the time it has to be stopped manually. You need to be checking when it starts to go mischievous or go bonkers. But it's interesting because the recommendation, as you can see here on the graph in the right, it's to gradually increase the load. Gradually, this is key. The duration generally for a breakpoint test will be long. Otherwise, you won't be able to see in which moment and what broke, because if you suddenly increase, can not like a spike, but a fast increase, let's say 30 minutes, you go to ridiculous amounts of load, you won't be able to tell what failed first or what was a cause the chain reaction, the bottleneck, or however you want to call it. And that takes time. And you have, as you said, Pepe, well, who wants to be 4 hours there sitting and waiting to see something going red or starting to fail? So at times thresholds are interesting or usable. What other means would you say, Pepe, we could?
We had been discussing. So either you define a threshold, and we know that Casey has some limitation in that regard for defining a threshold on a long duration test.
Spoiler alert.
Or alerting. So you define some alert on your system, you see them, and then you stop the test, so that you don't need to be continuously checking your test. And I think what we find the most, because if you see the chart on the right here, this is how you usually ramp up on a K6 test from 0 to, but we see more the ramp up on the left side, that you are gradually, then stable, you gradually, and you on every step, you see how your system performs. So you could identify easily when it starts to break.
The little by little, what do you prefer, a ramp or a stair step? And both are valid. They count as breakpoint tests or capacity or limit, whatever you want to name them, so that you identify the limit and when the system is starting to misbehave. But many say like, hey, but I don't have the time. The first 2 hours, I already know, let's say here at the middle, that the system survives. Why waste the time ramping up that little? Okay, I give you that. There are some others, because cloud bills and paying for those hours may be something that you want to avoid. Some organizations say like, hey, from my previous tests, because you were doing some other low test types, I know that at this point we're fine. So let's go and a decent pace up there. And then let's gradually keep increasing so that you don't miss all this time. And let's say you start from this point, but you save all these hours that it takes to get to that point. So there are many ways. It's interesting, the perspective, and we had a very good discussion, Pepe and I. Like, I personally wouldn't dare to leave a breakpoint test alone and go to have lunch and let a threshold stop it, because we want to be paying attention when the patient starts to suffer, right? So this is another that, how often do you think we should run this?
Whenever you change your infrastructure, you should also try to see
That's
where
a
is
good
the
one.
breaking point.
Changes, which happen not that often. So these are the test types. These were some of the discussions, some of the names, and some of the controversies. But we have some other things that we want to share. K6, of course, you can automate it with K6. I love that we have the stages, and it's pretty straightforward. You have the ramp up stage. You stay for a while, for 30 minutes here in the example, and you ramp down for 5 minutes. We can do some other mixes, some other things. Let's say the spike, it has only 2 steps, more or less. Or the medium one is super short, super narrow, but super high. The breakpoint only has 1 step, and let's go very high, lots of time, and do your thing. The others are this trapezoidal, trapeze, how to say, Paul?
The trapezoid? Yeah.
Trapezoid, thank you. Yeah.
Or is it a rhombus? I don't know. I think it's a trapezoid.
No,
yeah.
Trapezoid, yeah. And that's a big recommendation. Why? We should avoid, and we were talking a little bit about these ones, but I've seen organizations that want to go crazy, like, yeah, let's test 9 a.m. and then it goes at noon at this point, and then after lunch it goes up again. This is called a roller coaster pattern. I mean, you can tell here we're like, wee and wee. No, those are not very good because you're wasting time. If we care only about this high moment, why just not model it at this shape and just be done with it? The only moment when I think would be interesting, as Paul very well mentioned, the spike in the middle of your trapezoid, the thing that you have on screen, put a spike and see what happens. That's, I think, the only situation where I would say I feel it justified. But for the rest, it's a waste of time because this lower load, I mean, what I care is this one. Are we going to survive? Is my performance going to degrade? So be warned. This is important. Many, because you can go crazy with them. Go crazy with them. Don't do it. It's unless you have a very good justification.
I think that is a good recommendation, Leandro, because at the end the tools are very flexible, and sometimes you want to do cool things. Starting to with this stage, okay, I go up, I go down, I go as. It's a nice chart, right? But it's not necessary at the end.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. That's
right.
We like to have it on K6 because there are situations, fringe cases where yes, that may be needed, but most of the time, 95, 99, I would say, stick to this trapezoidal square something thing.
And I was going to mention too, since I know Marie's on too, but now talking about the hybrid testing, because like in some cases you might have, maybe your back end, the API driven load, going on in the back end as a soak test, and then you can come in and start doing things like with K6 browser, as another layer of activity and kind of doing things. So.
That's a good point. And I would say most of the K6 browser tests should be like a shakeout. We shouldn't be doing like huge volumes, unless that is the only route we have. But most of the time, I would say have this shape with, as you say, endurance or a load test, and tiny here, a little tiny overlapped with a browser so that you know how this load is affecting the browser.
And there's more controversy there. You just said shakeout test. I didn't see that in the diagrams.
The shakeout? It's
You
another
mean,
name for, let's go.
yeah, you mean the smoke test.
Okay, shakeout. Yeah, I got mixed up. Again, there are a lot of fun situations. But speaking of fun situations, let's keep moving because we are nearing ramp down time.
I think the last one is the most controversial
It's
of
very
all of them
controversial.
that I have here.
And I think this deserves a full episode
Oh.
of office hours. What should we choose? Because as you saw in the graphs that we shared, we say virtual users or throughput. This is how you can generate the load. But choosing one over the other has different outcomes on how your load patterns will behave. We have the open model and the closed model. The closed model is the one with the virtual users. You focus on having virtual users, and that's it. And the open model, you have throughput. You focus on having a number of throughput. How is this worked? Well, to keep a throughput, if your system starts slowing down, you add more users to keep the throughput. But if you keep the users fixed, your throughput goes down if the system gets slower. So here's a trade-off. And Pepe, you made a good point that when you are indicated which one to use or given instructions.
Yes. So I think when we were writing that documentation, we didn't say what to test. It was more about the test of type in terms of the load. You define the load, but we are not telling what system you are testing, end-to-end, API testing, or so on. And we didn't get into you should be using the closed model or the open model as well. My thinking is more if you get the requirement in terms of users, you are going to choose the closed model. You are going to go to your analytics tool, Google Analytics, and calculate the normal user traffic and define using view. But if you get the requirement on an API, you see like your API fails whenever you are getting 40 requests per second. You already know the throughput and what you want to test. And then you would choose the open model.
And fortunately, this is something that K6 offers. I have not seen it in other tools where you can focus or generate an open model by varying the number of virtual users that you are simulating. Because I remember to manage to do this in the past, we had to do like statistic analysis and try how many extra users or how many variable pacing or sleep times, another full topic for K6 office hours. Had to be made by hand. And fortunately, K6, you just give it, I need this throughput, work out the arriving rate of the virtual users, and give us this throughput. And that's, I think, huge for some of us that are just given this indication, like, I just want 10,000 clicks per hour. Okay, can work that out easily with K6, right? That's really cool that I could not find in other tools, but mind-blowing for me, I have to say. Now, we just have a few minutes. There are some other interesting details that we wanted to share, but I think that we will try to discuss at different times because we have some ways in how you can structure and modularize your tests to reutilize elements of your scripts and your automations. There's as well this indication for simple load patterns. Pepe has a very good example here where you can just generate a function and send the parameters and have your tests go up, stay, go down with just a function. And you can reutilize this as you need. You did this comment, Pepe, trying to keep consistency in the load patterns to repeat, compare apples to apples, right? Your previous run, don't change the pattern and run it again. And soak tests, you were mentioning that this time window to do some measurements, we're working with K6 on implementing this functionality right now. There are some situations. And this is a good one that I just quickly wanted to share with you. You alluded, Pepe, that on the cloud activity, most of the time, we see that the number of runs are short duration.
Short duration test.
Most of them, because continuous and agile modern testing has to focus on these little mini load tests and these short runs, because for the releases, you cannot stop the pipeline for too long.
Mhm.
You should not. You'd better not. No frozen environments, no those things, unless you have some of the situations that we mentioned with the load testing types. So this is a very interesting thing that we got to pay attention to and keep in mind. And that I think that we should do as well some office hours around some of these topics, because they are huge, controversial, and we can have many more
I
discussions.
think, yeah. Pepe's just made sure to invite himself back to an office hour. So awesome. Yeah.
He already
Yeah.
agreed. Everyone, you saw him. We're going to have some talks on closed models and these windows of long tests, because that's also very important to understand what is happening.
I'd
and
love to
many
see
more.
when and who administers those tests and the overall, like the DevOps life cycle.
That's a very good one. How to integrate in these cycles, and a common question that we get. But for now, we have gotten to the end of the show. We have some quick comment before we say goodbye to everyone. Oh yeah, Marie is inviting Pepe as a regular guest, which we are super happy to have him around.
Thank you, Marie.
Well, everyone, have a great day. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation today and that you learned a little bit and you enjoyed the discussions. I saw some topics, and from your conversations, I know that we generated some gasps and some wheels running out up there. So any comments, please let us know. We are happy to discuss these topics, and we will have more on future K6 hours. For today, I'm going to close up thanking for the champions, all their good contributions. But first, Paul, thank you very much. Pepe, thank you very much for joining us. And for this, let's close with the champions Rio. And have a beautiful Friday, everyone. And we'll see you again soon.
Bye,
Adios.
everyone.
Good Friday.
Adios.